Tough Call Mediation is brought to you by Herb Legal LLP, serving your mediation and freelance paralegal needs in Ontario, New York, Quebec, and throughout North America. Connect to their website today at www.herblawservices.com.
Hello and welcome to Tough Call, a mediation podcast. My name is C.T. Ehler and I'm joined with Mr. Dale Sheldon, my co-host.
Hello, hello.
And we are also joined with the lovely and delightful Mr. Khary Small. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. How about yourself?
Good, good. So Khary and I met recently because we are both mediators in Ontario, but he specializes more in landlord tenant mediation than I do, which is a very hot topic these days, at least in Ontario, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. Dale, do you know anything about what's going on in Ontario with the housing crisis? Or is
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so Khary, just so you know, we live in Ogdensburg, New York. So we're in New York right now. And housing is not that big an issue in the sense of, like, just no one wants to live here.
There's too many empty houses here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know affordable housing is difficult in certain parts of Quebec, like Montreal. It's very difficult. BC, especially Vancouver, terrible. But I don't know. I guess
I've heard that about Vancouver.
Yeah, but Dale's originally from California. I mean, I'm guessing.
Oh, wow.
LA.
Oh, San Francisco and LA are both
Impossible.
Well, I wouldn't say they're impossible. You can definitely find affordable housing, but it's not going to be in great areas or, in
good condition.
Which is why I moved to New York.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're finding, though, in Ontario, though, is it's become more and more difficult for the average, even just, say, 4-person family to be able to afford housing that isn't subpar or substandard, or even those subpar, substandard, even get the... I'll give you an idea. 2013, so over 10 years ago, my husband and I in Ontario, when we were moving to the Thousand Islands area, when we would show up for a place to give an application to, there were already like 10, 20 people applying to the same unit.
Wow.
In a rural area where population 5,500. Just for Ontario, still not considered really great. Toronto, already very difficult. Ottawa, already very difficult. Some parts of Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, where I was for a long time, very, very difficult. You're in Niagara region, right, Khary?
Yeah. Right, that's right.
How's housing there in general? Like 10 years ago, what was it like compared to now?
It's not too bad. The thing is that there's not enough affordable housing. Right now, they're building a lot of condos here because the baby boom population is moving southward, and a lot of them are retiring, like my parents' age. So a lot of them, the kids have left and stuff like that, so they're buying condos. And it's still expensive to live in Niagara because the average rent is about $1,500 here for a decent sized place.
For Niagara. And we're not talking like Niagara downtown with the Niagara Falls. We're talking about the general Niagara area.
Yep. It's about $1,500 a month. And it's you have like a lot what's called shacking up, where you have like maybe 2, 3, 4 people living in the same roof, and they're all strangers, or they may know each other, but then they still try to accommodate food, housing, clothing, etc. In terms of the LTB, I think what happens is that the last few years, especially after COVID, the LTB has been inundated with a lot of cases, right? So inundated with a lot of cases and very few adjudicators to accommodate those cases. So it takes like 8 months to hear your case in front of an adjudicator, and then another 2 months to get a decision made. So you're looking at about a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for our American listeners, LTB is short for Landlord Tenant Board. So it's an administrative law board, and it's separate from the court system.
I thought it was like long-term benefit. I didn't know.
No.
I was guessing what that meant.
No, but it's a board that deals specifically with residential landlord tenant
Right.
issues,
Oh,
because
interesting.
commercial is still generally handled with the courts.
Gotcha.
That's correct.
But it's high demand right now, a lot of cases. And one of the things I found, so Khary and I, we were talking a bit more about this, is we're trying to educate, especially the Ontario populace, that so many people are getting upset and angry. They just want immediately to go to LTB, Landlord Tenant Board. I'm going to file a complaint and I'm going to have my day in front of adjudicator. And we're trying to tell them, chances are you may be waiting 6 months to a year for, do you know where it stands right now, roughly, for how long you can have it?
8 months.
8 months. So 8 months before your case could be brought before an adjudicator. On that day, when you're called into that hearing, it's all gone virtual. So you're in an online Zoom call. You're in a room, a virtual room. And then when they call you, they may not have time for you. So sometimes adjudicators will be mindful of the breaks or things that they need to do, and they will automatically put you into mediation. So you haven't even really had a chance to get into your hearing or discuss the
Interesting.
matter.
Right.
And listen, we're running behind. And sometimes, depending on the adjudicator you get, you're not even getting asked. It's like, you're going into mediation for a little bit so we can handle another matter that we promised to attend to earlier. So we're going to clean this backlog up to get to you. So talk there. And getting people aware of that has been really, really, really difficult, because I've got a chance to sit with people who are duty counsel, who are there for self-represented members. So sometimes the adjudicator will ask the landlord or the tenant, are you represented by anyone? No. Okay, I'm going to put you in with duty counsel today, so I can handle the other matters and you can chat. And one of the things that duty counsel members are saying, are you willing to mediate this? Like, let's get this off the books because of how backlogged the system is. So let's say you are a landlord who's really upset with your tenants who've been very bad actors. You really want them out now. You've served them a bunch of things and it's going nowhere, and you've waited 8 months. And they maybe even stopped paying rent for 8 months. So you can't wait to get heard because you want your day. So you're not willing to mediate. You're not willing to talk to duty counsel. You just need to get this done. So you get thrown in to talk to duty counsel. Then they say, oh, you don't want mediation? Okay, well, you're going to be before the adjudicator again in about 10 minutes. Let's wait until your name is called again. Then you get in, they've finished a matter, and they go, okay, so Mr. Sheldon, did you speak with duty counsel? Yes. Okay, did you choose mediation? No, I want to proceed. Okay, well, we don't have time for you today, so we're going to send out another notice for your hearing. And that was your hearing appointment for that day. And you may not have your matter attended to for how many? When would be the next hearing, Khary?
The next hearing, 8 months, 9 months, depending.
Oh, that's crazy. You'd be living somewhere else. By
Yeah,
then.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage people to do mediation, because that way your case will be heard much sooner.
And
if you're going through the LTB.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because a mediator isn't tied into any specific one setting, that you can hire a private mediator to assist you to resolve your issues faster and more expediently. Yes, he's in the Niagara region, but he could hear anyone in Ontario. He could hear people in New York.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's what's really great. So I do want to give a shout out to your business, Khary. So anyone who's looking to talk to you later on after we talk today, they can go to www.ksmediation, all one word, .ca. Yeah, and then they get to learn about you and about your mediation.
Oh, yeah.
So take people through, let's say I'm a tenant and Dale is a landlord and I'm upset with him. Of course, he's probably upset with me. And we've both gone ahead, because people don't always realize that sometimes the tenant will file something and sometimes the landlord will file something. They're not always merged, although it would be great if they were, but sometimes they're not always merged. Okay? So I've filed something against him. He's filed something against me. Someone heard your name. Would it be me contacting you as the tenant typically? Dale contacting you? Like, who generally initiates it for you?
Sometimes it's the tenants. Sometimes it's the landlord. Usually it's like the person who's got the problem the most. And they're contacting me to see what they can do, what their rights are. Because sometimes it could be from from their rights being infringed to a noise complaint. Could be, that some of their stuff was taken, or sometimes the landlord will go into their unit without the tenant's permission. Another one, which is big, is also to repayment of rent. That's usually one that builds up the most, because there's like thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in which the landlord wants to recoup back from the tenant.
Especially when COVID, because there were so many people who had their lives blown up, or just they lost their job, disruption.
Yeah, and so that is a problem. Sometimes, too, what the landlords will also do is they'll, what they call, jack up the price of the rent. And each year there's like a certain percentage. I forget what it is for 2024, but when it was during COVID, it was only 0%. So some landlords were increasing it by $100 or $200 because they figure Joe Schmo down the street is doing the same thing, so why can't I do it? And the tenants do have rights.
Yeah, the rent increase for 2024 in Ontario is 2.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for $1,500 a month and then 2.5 increase can be a lot, especially if you're a single parent with, say, 2 or 3 kids. Yeah. But fun fact, because I was just trying to see if we could get Dale interested on landlord tenant issues. I was looking it up for California. Did you know landlords in California, they cannot raise rent more than 10% total or 5% plus the percentage change in the cost of living, whichever is lower over a 12-month period. That's a huge amount of increase.
Well, in a lot of places it's lower than that. Like, that's the base for the state of California. But then, like, the city of Los Angeles, it's substantially lower, I believe. So it depends on where you are.
Do you think a landlord, though, would try to do the state standard and maybe
they do all the time,
right?
Yeah. Or more than the state standard.
Well, that's what...
Or they try to trick it in some other way. It's like, well, I'm not going to raise your rent, but you do have to pay the water bill from now on, or something, some other thing like that.
What's the average rent there in Los Angeles?
Oh, God, that's hard for me to even say. So I lived in Hollywood for a little while.
Ooh.
Like right in the center, like just a couple of blocks from Grauman's Chinese Theater. And my rent there for a 2-bedroom bungalow that was like 400 square feet, so a tiny house, was, if I remember correctly, I think I was paying $1,600 a month for that. But that was after several years of rent control. Normally, that place would have been like a minimum of $2,200-$2,300 a month. And I think
for 400 square feet.
For 400 square feet, 2-bedroom.
Wow.
Now I think, now that I'm gone, I think he's brought it up to $2,600 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, but my little 2-bedroom, 1,500 square foot house in Fraser Park, California, which is on the border of Los Angeles County and the next county over. It's way up in the mountains. It's fairly remote, but kind of like in a village.
Still sounds beautiful.
It is. It's beautiful. It's a nice little house, a cabin actually from the 20s that I own. I rent that out for $1,600 a month. So it really, California is so, yeah.
And I'm guessing maybe even some backwater California, because there are parts of California. It's a huge state.
It is enormous, yeah. I mean, you can live out in the Mojave Desert for cheaper if you wanted to.
Next to nothing, I'm guessing?
Well, for that matter, there's Slab City. Have you heard of Slab City? Slab City is out in the California desert, and I think it used to be some sort of a military base or something at one time. It basically is just a bunch of cement out there, and people are off the grid just living there. Oh. Free. They just, they bring their RVs or whatever.
Tax-free too?
Well, they have no jobs. They literally live completely off the grid.
Wow.
It's also not a very safe place to live either.
Right.
But it's literally the Old West.
And there's no amenities I can gather, probably.
People have created amenities. They have water filtration systems and power generators and stuff like that. It's not a lot, but a little bit.
I'm wondering if there's like tent city in California there, like how you see in that one of those films like They Live, where
like in Skid Row,
Yeah, well, there's enclaves of land where it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They could sleep. There's heat during the night. I'm wondering if there's a lot of that in California. They call it tent city.
Not that you usually see. Like I've heard of it. You
have to go look for it?
You have to know where it is, and you have to go look for it.
Interesting.
The famous one is Skid Row in Los Angeles, of course.
It's huge.
It's not as huge as they make out to be in the news and stuff. It's like a couple of blocks of a single street, usually. But then they make out...
that it expanded, though, like especially during COVID. Like it used to be this very specific almost street, and now it's much bigger.
Kind of, but it's still like condensed to that one area, and it's just if they saw any one person like a few blocks away, suddenly the whole area is expanded. But it's not really. Do you know what I mean? It's not like that one part is truly expanded onto other streets. It's just there's some people are scattered more a bit around the area.
Well, that makes me so curious because in like last summer, even tent cities emerged throughout all of Ontario. You could go even in little tiny
but
Gananoque.
We've always had them, I think, is what it was.
Right. Okay. And we've had issues with housing in the past in Ontario, but we also have the winter.
Yeah. Well, and that's why there's so many of them.
Yeah. Well, -10, -15.
Yeah.
I don't think you have that in California.
No, we don't. That's why we've always had those tent cities in California.
Right.
Because people from, homeless from all around the country would migrate their way to Southern California.
California, right.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm guessing you're not seeing tent cities in Malibu Beach.
You don't see them in Santa Clarita. You don't see them in Malibu Beach. We don't see them in Fraser Park. The majority of the state, you really don't see them.
Really?
So all this stuff on the news of, I remember coming here and someone was like, "Oh, you're from California," and all the, there's homeless everywhere. Like, no, you don't really see it, not unless you're really looking for it.
Because you go down to downtown Vancouver, and there's an area where year round
Yeah.
That's where you go. Parts of Toronto where I was growing up, I knew this is where,
And that's how it is in LA and San Francisco. Yeah.
Okay.
There are places that that's where they are.
Well,
and you'll see
where
someone
the
scattered here
are,
and there too.
Right?
It's where the services are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of tent cities that even Kingston, Brockville, Belleville, people who were just sort of camping with their family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit alarming when you learn that people who have full-time, round-the-clock kind of abilities and amenities and are going to jobs and stuff, but living out of their car in Canada in the winter, that's scary. It's very scary.
And we did see an increase, like you were talking about in Niagara, of would you call it shacking? I mean, we don't use that term, but the same thing. Younger people,
That's been in New York City for ages and ages, right?
Yeah. Just pulling your resources together and sharing rooms, and you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Well, I know that some of these corporate landlords, they're accountable to their shareholders. So if you rent in one of these, corporate apartment buildings, ideally you're just a number. So you pay your rent or you get out. That's really their philosophy.
Well, and it's become more difficult for sort of mom and pop independent owning landlords who to run businesses, because we could say and put it all on a tenant saying, oh, they're a bad actor or whatnot. However, there have been practices which sounded great for a long time of a tenant doesn't really want to go, and the landlord wants to sell the house. So it's like, listen, I'm selling the house. I don't know what the next renter's what the next buyer is going to be, but you might want to consider going. Or someone needs to do extensive renovations to their property. Now we're calling it renoviction, because it's become a new way to evict tenants, to say, well, I'm doing an extensive, nobody can live there. But then you see some bad acting landlords who are doing that. And so what has started to happen is it's becoming almost commonplace for landlords to give someone money in order to leave.
Yep.
And these incentives to go has become standardized to a certain extent. It hasn't become regulated. There are some people I've seen in various community forums and landlord tenant forums and whatnot, where tenants now believe that they're entitled to a certain amount of pay from the landlord before they move. And that's unfortunately not the case. It's just
they might have gotten that because that kind of is the case in some places, like in California.
Yeah.
Like if I remember correctly, and I haven't gone into this, but like if someone's doing renovation, I believe the landlord has to, if the person has to move out in order for the renovation to be done, like it's not safe to be on the premises, the landlord has to rehouse them during that time, and they have to be able to come back. Like you can't evict someone through a renovation, at least not, I don't believe, in Los Angeles County, and probably not in San Francisco or most of California.
Ooh, California paralegals, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I mean, I feel like I remember hearing that, but I'm not a paralegal, so I could be totally wrong. And I also feel like I remember hearing, again, could be wrong, that like if you purchase a property that has a tenant in it, and they have their lease or whatever for a certain amount of time, you cannot just kick them out unless you're intending to actually be the new resident yourself. Like you've bought a house and you are moving in yourself.
That's in Ontario as well.
You can't just...
You were an
there's a lot
immediate
of that.
family. Yeah.
No, I was saying there's a lot of that, like what you said there, Dale, where the landlord says, oh, I'm moving in my cousin, and so you have to leave. And then the tenant leaves, and then they find out that, their cousin didn't move in. They just wanted to increase the rent. And as a landlord, you're not allowed to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Has to
I mean,
be
in
you
California,
or
you can't even be a direct. It has to be you.
Oh, really?
Only
Because
you.
it can be you or a direct. That's what's in the RTA. And so it can be like, let's say my son gets old enough and I have a property. If my son needs to move in, it's considered okay. But
Maybe
it can't
child
be a
or parent
cousin.
might be. Yeah, but not
and
a cousin.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of tenants in Ontario who don't know. Oh, your
Right.
cousin needs to move in? Oh, I see. So we do see that a lot, don't we, Khary, where a tenant has almost been duped.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I think the government should step in and do something about this housing crisis. Because
Yes.
I don't know if the word's getting out of hand, but it's a problem.
It's bad everywhere. And it
And
shouldn't even be a thing in 2024.
It doesn't.
And even here in St. Catharines, yeah, St. Catharines has like a big homelessness problem. Like there's a lot of people here with like tents, and they go to the soup kitchen, and they're into narcotics and stuff like that. And I think the government, if it's municipal or provincial, should really step in and
Yeah, we
curb
have
this.
that in Ogdensburg too. There are a lot of people who they might not be homeless per se, but they're really struggling. They don't have economic opportunities. There's not a lot of issues. So drugs are prevalent. And to be honest, if I was out of a home and I didn't have a job, I'd probably be doing narcotics as well. So I've known a lot of people in my life who have struggled with addiction issues. And sometimes it's not a mental health issue until you have been struggling for so long and you've had so many hard knocks. And the thing is what people don't realize is, let's say you've been couch surfing on friends' couches for a number of months and you've been chronically unemployed because you had a workplace injury and the Workmen's Compensation Board didn't cover it. So you had trouble finding all of your clothes. So now your clothes are ill-fitting because you've lost a significant amount of weight. So you kind of look a little bit funny. You're having trouble laundering them because you don't have access to laundry facilities. Maybe, your friend's letting you sleep on their couch, but they don't live the best lifestyle.
Yeah.
And maybe they even smoke. So you reek of smoke, and then you're trying to go out and get jobs. You don't really come across as appealing to somebody.
Yeah.
And then maybe you're taking food delivery jobs.
Yeah, you're not very presentable.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're working, and there's the erosion of our labor laws have gone. Oh, it's shocking. Like some people really believe we still have a lot of labor rights and we don't. And I know people who are sometimes single parents who are working 3, 4, 5 part-time or casual jobs. And they're still trying to look for stable work, and they're run off their feet, and they can't make ends meet. They're spending more on their gas and their upkeep to get to jobs and to help keep food in their kids' bellies than they can to keep a roof over their head. It's just, it really is a game of cat and mouse. And once you get there, getting out of that cycle is next to impossible.
Wow.
Well, I just want to say, how do you go about getting a mediation happening? How do you get that peace?
Well, I contact both the parties, landlord and tenant, and then I get both of their stories, and then they agree to mediate, which is, hopefully sometime in the close near future. And then I get them through Zoom, or I get them to my office down in Fort Erie, and they tell both of their stories. And I try to help them resolve or come to terms with any of their disputes. Or any of their matters related to if it's housing or if it's a tree or a fence that's on somebody else's property. And that's really what a mediator does.
Do you have any secret ideas in your arsenal for encouraging people to resolve relatively quickly?
Nothing really. Most of it is just, like trying to get along with the other person. And try to be amicable in discussing some of the issues, if that's the case.
Just getting them to the table, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if you can't do that, then call me the mediator.
Agreed. Oh my gosh, Khary, I hope we can have you again, because this was awesome.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and listeners, if you have any questions, you can now contact him on his website. We will put it in the show notes as well. Is there any other way you would want to be contacted with? Is your website the best way?
Yeah, the website's the best way, or they can contact me through my phone at 289-807-5103.
Oh, wow. Look at you giving out your phone number. That's so brave. But it's true. Sometimes calling up is the best way these days, right? Yeah. And also, if you have just general questions and maybe you want to learn and have Khary back on in a future episode, listeners, write us at toughcallmediation@gmail.com. And I hope you're interested in coming back on again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. We really appreciate your time, listeners. Tune in next weekend and like, rate, subscribe. See you next time. Bye
Bye-bye.
for now.
You've been listening to Tough Call, a mediation podcast hosted by C.T. Ehler and Dale Sheldon. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord. This podcast was edited by Jean Sarrazin, with social media and marketing by Jazz Virbati and Hope Ursek. Original music by Ty Ray Lawton. This podcast was sponsored by Herb Legal LLP, where you can find more episodes at www.herblawservices.com. Thank you for listening.